back. If you've just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 on Channels Television, coming to you live from Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. Flash floods wipe out 10 communities in Jibia, local government area of Bauchi State, killing at least 40 people, rendering several homeless. Nigerian army says Boko Haram terrorists are regrouping in Bama area of Borno State, denies occupation of military base in Yobe by terrorists. Senior pastor of the Household of God Church, Chris Okotie, asked Nigerians leading political parties to adopt him as their presidential candidate. And US President Donald Trump defends Russia with the claims of interference in the 2016 presidential election after face-to-face talks with Russian President Vladimir Putin. Now, channelstv.com has more information for you, and on youtube.com/channelsweb you can watch our videos. You can also watch us on your mobile device via your browser or download the Channels TV app for Android, iOS and Windows devices from their respective stores. Besides giving you access to news updates on the go, the Channels TV and Channels 24 app has an eyewitness feature that you can use to share pictures, videos or news of happenings around you. Just install the app, then tap and swipe to reveal the menu and then follow the instructions. The Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Walter Onoge, has called on other arms of government to respect the separation of powers, as the independence of the judiciary can only be sustained and guaranteed where there is no interference by other arms of government in the discharge of its duties. The Chief Justice, who was represented by Justice Kumai Ahas of the Supreme Court, believes that the true test of democracy of any nation is how much power the nation is prepared to concede to the judiciary.
The mandate of the National Judicial Institute.
Newly appointed magistrates in the company of judges of the different courts in the country at the 2018 orientation course for legal officers. The Chief Justice of Nigeria, represented by Justice Kumai Akas of the Supreme Court, demands a true separation of powers amongst the three arms of government.
It is quite often said that the litmus test to find out how free and democratic any nation is to take a cursory look at its judiciary to find out what powers the nation is prepared to concede to this vital partner in governance. The complete and real independence of the judiciary is thus a reflection of the nation and of freedom. The independence of the judiciary can only be sustained and guaranteed when there is no interference by the other arms of government in the discharge of its duties.
The Chief Justice also announced that henceforth communication with the court would only be done electronically as the judiciary moves to complete digitalization.
The manual forms of communication within Nigerian courts will soon be phased out. Henceforth, lawyers who have acquired the legal email can now communicate electronically with the courts. However, by 16 July 2018, it becomes mandatory. That is a text effect from today. So you must be computer literate. The Supreme Court will only serve processes by electronic means, that's legal mail on all matters. Hence, all new filings as from 16 July 2018 must bear counsel's legal email address.
These reforms introduced are expected to enhance justice delivery in Nigeria. Amaka Okafor, Channels Television News.
The National Assembly has held its first ever open week to promote transparency and citizens' engagement. At the opening of the week-long event, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Yakubu Lugara, says many Nigerians do not understand the functions of Parliament, and he hopes that the week will bridge the gap. Our correspondent Linda Akigbe reports.
Nigerians repeatedly demand for openness and accountability from the National Assembly, and they want lawmakers to engage with their constituents on a regular basis.
Currently, it's at discretion of members to visit their constituency and interact with the people, most time for the purposes of re-election. But for the purposes of representation, we must make sure that members and senators have a certain week or days they visit their constituency and compulsorily interact with the people and present their scorecards.
We need a lot of openness in the areas of budgeting, accountability.
I expect to see a Nigeria where citizens are interested about budgetary allocations for developments in their places, doing a follow-up, possibly quizzing their legislators, and where they cannot answer to their questions, suing even for a recall.
The National Assembly maintains that it is ready to engage more with the public, and this is perhaps the driving force behind the first ever National Assembly Open Week. The Parliament opened its doors to a cross-section of Nigerians to discuss the workings of Parliament as well as pertinent national issues.
We hope through this process that we'll be able to understand our role and our responsibility. We will understand the work that we do, the bills that we pass, the process that it takes, and all the procedures and processes that are required.
But the Speaker of the House of Representatives wants openness and cooperation to extend the relationship between the executive and the legislature.
May I also use this opportunity to call on other arms of government, particularly the executive branch, to open its doors and activities to the legislative scrutiny. Legislative oversight and scrutiny is very critical to government or to good governance.
Years of military rule which truncated democracy effectively rendered the legislature the least developed arm of government. Lawmakers themselves admit that many Nigerians are not educated on the role of the legislature. Therefore, the Parliament has its work cut out for it in deepening the understanding of the public on the responsibilities of the National Assembly. Linda Akibe, Channels Television News.
Let's cross over to Abuja now. Here's Ibrahim Adra. Ibrahim.
Many thanks indeed, Ijama. Good to see you. Let's begin with President Muhammadu Buhari's meeting with Nigerians living in the Netherlands, where he says he is pleased with their personal achievements. The president was speaking when he met with members of Nigerians in diaspora organization NIDO on the sidelines of his official visit to The Hague. He told the group that he is quite pleased with their intellectual and professional achievements and also acknowledged their efforts in keeping in touch with their motherland. Among those who met President Buhari were Julius Nnamdi Wankpa, who is the chairman of NIDO, Dr. Mustapha Gidado, a specialist in tuberculosis, and several others. The group also had an interactive session with the president where issues of security, corruption, and national development were discussed. Vice President Professor Yemi Osinbajo says it is time for Nigeria to sign the Africa Continental Free Trade Area Agreement after weighing the opportunity cost of not being part of the trade area. Professor Osinbajo explains that while the trade negotiation is on, Nigeria will take into account issues that can pose injurious trade practices on the country. He was speaking at the quarterly business forum at the State House. Our correspondent Gloria Omezoke reports.
There are clearly huge gains for us, no question at all. The rest of Africa also naturally see the enormous advantage of Nigeria's participation. Everybody is waiting for us, naturally. And that's because they see a huge market, they see the advantages of our being there. But we must be sure to get the best possible terms for Nigerian trade and commerce. Our experiences with dumping, with transshipment, and other injurious trade practices make it obvious to us that our market could be a real target, our local manufacturing could become unprofitable, and agricultural advances could be reversed. But it's my sense that we must be careful not to give the impression that these are minimum preconditions for engagement with the process. I think we must be careful not to give people, because the question, of course, has been asked is, when will we be ready? What is the opportunity cost of not engaging now? I think these are some of the concerns that we must have. We must fix this car, as I've said in the past, while the engine is running. We're not going to wait. You can't, the way things are going, the only way to do it is to fix it, is to fix the car while the engine is running. You can't say, there's just no time for us to say, okay, let's wait take down the entire car, dismember it, and put it back again just to repair it. I think this is the time to go ahead and do something about it while we are taking into account all of the issues that have been raised and making sure that we're negotiating well.
It's now on good authority that the planned repair of the third mainland bridge in Lagos, beginning from July the 27th, will not last up to 27 months, as claimed in some reports. This clarification is coming from the Minister of Power, Works and Housing, Mr. Babatunde Fashola. He was a guest on our breakfast program, Sunrise Daily. Mr. Fashola also explained the plan by his ministry to effectively tackle the shortfall in housing in the country.
Our housing model has started. We're building in 34 states. We are piloting now to validate first the acceptability of the model and the affordability before we roll out. Acceptability and affordability are important and they're relevant to the question that you raised about the data of deficit. In every city that I have been to in this country, there is one empty house or the other. Did the person who conducted that census include the number of empty houses? Are there housing deficits in rural areas, and how many are they? There will be no one size fits all. So what we've seen is that largely in the north, buildings must respect their privacy, and you must build in such a way that you build courtyards at the rear. They also prefer bungalows, partly because of the climatic conditions and so on and so forth. In the south, we see that blocks of flats are easily more acceptable. So we are rolling out those models in different parts of the country based on the feedback that we have received. The statement we put out was that we were closing it for the first 3 days, I believe, from the 27th or thereabout of July. The first 3 days at the end of this month, as was issued in our press statement, was for investigative work to be conducted to assess the current condition. This is a choice between people's safety. Ultimately, that bridge must not collapse and it needs maintenance. It has been built now upwards of going 30-something years. Yes. At the end of this, we will come back to members of the public and say to you definitively, based on the outcome of what we get from this assessment, and say definitively this is how long it is going to take. I'm not in a position to say that now until that report comes back to us. But what will happen at the end of July is 3 days.